सत्यमेव जयते नानितम् उत्तिष्ठं जागृतप्राप्यपरान्निबोधितम्. Hey, good morning. It is 5:37 a.m. in the morning, and we are live this time to reach to you, preach to you, and greet to you with the real Sanatana Dharma. In this episode number 18, today's topic is the virtues and vices in relation to the equals, how to treat the equal people based on the ancient Sanatana Dharma, the real Sanatana Dharma. How to treat people, how to treat your elders, how to treat your brother and sister, how to treat your wife, how to treat your sister, and who are your younger and who are your elder brothers and sisters. So in this episode today, we will be discuss detail the virtues and vices in relation to equals. We have next to consider our relation with the equal that surround us on every side, and to know what virtues should be developed, what vices avoided in order to make our home and our outer relation harmonious and happy. Let us first think of those of the home, for they are of primary importance, pure and happy homes in which family virtues are practiced make the foundation of prosperous states or successful nation. We have seen the relations that should exist between parents and children, and we must now study those that should be found between husband and wife, between brothers and sisters. The Hindu books are full of stories of the love that should bind a husband and wife together or congenial love. Husband and wife are the same. The Manu says they are one, not two. Love makes the two into one. Love protective, slaughtering, and sheltering, tender on the side of the husband. Love yielding, sweet, devoted on the side of the wife. Let mutual fidelity continue until death. Ramachandra and Sita from an ideal husband and wife. They enjoy all life's happiness together and suffer together all life's sorrows. They take counsel together in all perplexity and share together all difficulties. We see them first in unclouded bliss, princes and prince, happy as the day is long. When the coronation of Ramachandra approaches, we see them fasting and praying together. When the shock of the sentence of exile comes, Sita accepts it carelessly at first, caring only for her husband presence, and she would go with him, she whose heart is wholly thine, knowing not another, ever clinging to thee, resolute to die if left by thee. Thorn would touch her skin like soft linen, dust would be as sandal powder, and grass would serve as the blanket, roots and leaves are pleasant food. So long she as she was by her husband's side. O Rama, the company is heaven, the absence hell. Only when he pled with her to remain behind does her heart fail her. And when he bids her come, she tosses gaily to her attendants all her costly robes and priceless jewels, stripping herself of all that woman love, without a sign, caring only for the joyous fact that exile could not separate husband and wife. Happy as a girl, she is sad to be playing in the forest glad, unmindful of the lost royal splendor, since she is nigh and day at Rama's side. But though so blithe she yet is wise, and we hear her counseling her husband with the grave, thoughtful words as they were wandered on the outskirts of the forest of Dhanaka or Dandaka. When she is carried away by Ravanas, the mighty Rakshasa, who her husband's love breaks forth in protected search. In wild outburst of lament, Sita, Sita, he cries in his anguish as he searches for her. Art thou hiding? Art thou playing? Oh, come, such sport is my death. While lament and seek, Sita is exposed to every temptation to be unfaithful, to every terror and cruel threat. Devoted to one husband, I will never sin against him. With wealth and riches, thou canst not tempt me, as the rays of the sun are his own, as am I Raghava's alone. And here the story of Savitri, who won her husband from the grasp of Yama, the king of death, King Ashwapati of the motherland. Motherland obtained a daughter by long worship of the Devas. They called her Savitri. Fair was she as a figure of gold and sweet as the jasmine flower, and the people worshipped her as a Devi come to them for their good deeds. When she came of age, her father said to her, choose thou a fitting husband for thyself. And she went forth search with royal retunes. When she returned after the lapse of many months, the Rishi Narada was staying with her father, and in his presence she announced the choice that she had made. King Dyumatsena of the shallow country, old and blind and driven from his country by his enemies, lives in a forest, leading a hermit life. His son Satyavan have I chosen for my spouse. Then Narada said, Allah, alas, O king, innocent Savitri hath done ill. Is he not fitting mate for Savitri? The king asked Narada, is he weak in mind or body, wanting in forgiveness or in courage? Narada said, in nothing is he wanting of all this, strong and radiant as the sun himself is Satyavan, generous like a Rantideva, just like Shivi, magnificent like Yayati, and beautiful like the moon. But all this wealth of virtues must pass away from the earth within a year. His span of life is very short. With sinking heart, Savitri heard the sage word yet said, but once can a person say, give away, and I have said it once, I give myself away to Satyavan. I cannot choose again, Narada said, because their daughter waver not, O king, I give my blessing to the marriage, and went away. Swift messengers went to the human Sena, and he sent back word to Ashwapati, I once myself desired alliance with thee, but so not how to ask for it in my fallen state. Now that the blessed Savitri is coming to me of her own accord, I know for sure that Lakshmi self is coming back unto our ancient house. So the marriage come to pass. Jealously, Savitri passed from her palaces to the hermit's cottage. Eagerly, she attended to the least wants of her aged father-in-law and mother-in-law, rejoicing to perform the humblest duties of the household. And by her tender ways and loving words enslaved the heart of her husband. But ever unearthed always the fire of secret agony lighted by the words of Narada burned within her soul, and ever she continued the days of the prescribed years. At last, the hour appointed for the death of Satyavan was only 4 days distant. Then she resolved to seek the help of the devas by fast and prayer, and all the 3 days she fasted, taking not a drop of water. Early she rose on the morning of the fateful day, finished the morning rites, and touched the feet of her elders. All the ascetic dwellings in that forest blessed her on that day, saying that she should never know the pegs of widowhood and the widowhood. And when the time came for Satyavana to go forth with his axe upon his shoulder into the wood for work, as usual, she made her heart strong and followed him. He asked in wonder why, but she said she wished to go with him that day, and so they went, beholding the beauties of the hills, the waters, the woods, and the birds and beasts. Then Satyavana began his daily labors, filled his wallet with fruit, and felled dried branches for fuel. But suddenly a faintness came upon him, and his head ached greatly, and he said this to Savitri and lay down. Then Savitri placed his head on her lap and sat with breaking heart, awaiting she knew not what. All at once she beheld a majestic and awe-striking form, dark yet shining, clad in red attire, standing beside her, and gazing with fixed yet flashing eyes at Satyavan. Gently she placed her husband's head on the ground, stood up, and made obeisance obeisance, and the form said, "The days of Satyavana's are ended. I am Yaman, the lord of death, and because she is so virtuous, I have come to take him away myself, rather than send my emissaries as usual." And he drew the Sukshma Sarira of Satyavana from his fleshy body and departed with it towards the south, and Savitri also followed. Then Yama said, "Dietist, O Savitri, go back and perform the funeral rites of the Lord, though last discharged their duty, and come as far behind the husband as mortal may go." Savitri replied, "Whether my husband goeth thither I go, and there I go. This is the eternal law for man and wife. If I have loved my Lord with undivided love, if I have served my husband or elders reverently, if there be any power in penance, then by my path unchecked out of the favor Yama. And innocently, like a little child, she repeated the lesson of the Dharma that her loving elders and her own gentle soul and had taught her by faithful services. Treading household ways to wisdom have I won, and to religious merits clay Close not these ways, O death, depriving me of my gathered fruit, wise and reasonable art of thou, O Savitri, thy words are sweet. Save the husband's life, I give thee any boons. His father lives in darkness, gracious king. By the favor, let his eyes once more behold the day. Fairest of the earth's daughter, I grant the boon thou seekest, and now return, O weary earth-born fate, that may not tread the gloomy path of death. Where he, my husband, goes, I still must follow. Fruitful is righteousness company. O King of death, and sweet it is to dwell with one like thee, not fruitless my such fair abiding prove. Take then a second boon as fruit, O peerless lady, but ask not for thy husband's soul, said Yama. Give then, O King of mortal world, his kingdom to my husband's father, his kingdom rent from him by evil men. He shall regain his throne, said Yama, and reign thereon. And now go back, fear them, nor follow further, but with sweet words and honeyed praises, Savitri still followed the Lord of Death. And won from him two other boons, 100 sons for her father and 100 for herself. When the fourth boon was granted, Savitri spoke in praise of righteousness living and of high discharge of duty. Then Yama, charmed by her eloquence of wisdom, granted her yet another boon, and Savitri quickly claimed her husband's life. Since Yama had granted her 100 sons, and righteousness would be infringed if others were their father, save her husband. Thus did a faithful wife win back from death her husband and brought to him family, prosperity, riches, and length of days, since even Yama, king of death, is weaker than a pure wife's faithful love. Nor can the Hindu pupil or boy forget the story of Damayanti, the wife of Nala, Nala, son of Veersena and king of Nishadas. Loved Damayanti, daughter of Bhima, the king of Vidarbha, and Damayanti loved Nala, though they had not met each other, but each had only heard the other's praises and been incomparable upon earth. Now the Satyavama, the Swayamvara of the princes was proclaimed, and there too went King Nala, and Damayanti chose him to be her husband. Although the Devas, Indra, Agni, Varuna, and Yama were among the suitors for her hand, and Nala and Damayanti lived together in great love for 11 happy years, and two children were born to them. In the 12th year came Pushkara and challenged King Nala to play him at dice, and Nala played and lost again and again, till at length he had lost to Pushkara his kingdom and all his wealth. Even this garment and wealth, both an exile with only one cloth half covering his body. Then Damayanti, his wife, having sent her children to her father's care when she saw how the games were going, went forth after him, clad also in a single cloth, and in the outskirt of the city they wandered athirst, hungry and athirst To complete their misery, Nala lost his clothes in the attempt to catch there with some bird for food. And hopeless and desperate, he wished Damayanti to be spared the suffering of hunger and repeatedly pointed out to her the road to her former home. But Damayanti clung to him, weeping, sobbing that she would not leave him, that when he was weary, she would soothe him, for in every sorrow there was no such medicine as a loving and faithful wife. Presently wearied out, she lay sleeping on the bare ground, and Nala argued with himself that it would be kinder to leave her, so that she might seek her relatives than to keep her wandering in misery with him. Thus thinking, he cut in half with a sword that was lying near the cloth she wore, leaving one half around her and wrapping around himself the other half. He fled from her, made with grief. The hopeless Damayanti, awaking, found herself alone, and bitter was her grief, more for Nala's loneliness than for her own loss. She sought her husband eagerly, but found him not, found instead a huge serpent that wrapped her closely in his coil. How she escaped, and what fresh perils befell her ere she found at last shelter as companion to a princess of the Chades, is told at length in the Nalopakayama. Meanwhile, Nala had rescued a snake ringed around with fire, and by the magic of the snake, his form was changed and become unrecognizable. And he wandered till he reached the city of King Ritu